Welcome into Overtime, presented by McDonald's. Dewey, Dailey, along with John Bruce for today's episode. John, we're coming up on the final week of the regular season. It's hard to believe we've made it here already. We'll take a look back at Week 9, talk about one impact player that broke a pretty substantial record in their school's history, and then we'll talk about some playoff chances, and we'll also preview some matchups in the upcoming Week 10, and then or I should say, as usual, throw our meaningless power rankings at the end. But
I got a couple of games not to watch.
Nice.
Yeah,
there we
they're
go.
definitely
Those are
outside the
my favorite.
area.
It feels weird because this is our second time filming in like 5 days, which is a little unusual. But I didn't even look at see how some of our games to not watch turned out.
They weren't close. So,
yeah, I would assume they were pretty.
Yeah, the first one you picked was like Reedy against
like Purcell or something.
Yeah, it was somebody that like I was like, oh, that might actually not be that bad of a game, and it was like it was pretty much as bad as you said. It was like 49-6. It was Reedy and Bexley. The other one was Purcell and North College Hill, which was also not close.
Anytime you see a 40-point spread, you pretty much know what you're getting into,
right?
Especially at this point in the season.
Yeah. That's I like just having a little fun at the end of the episode. No offense to those guys playing hard, but sometimes it's a little easier to laugh. Mine this week does feature a team that's giving up over 8 touchdowns a game.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, 55 plus points a game. And has scored 18 on the year. So
that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
All right.
Not 18 touchdowns either, 18 points.
All right, so we'll start off today's episode looking back on some of the games in Week 9. I'll start things off with South Point at Portsmouth. Now, obviously the game we live streamed last week, definitely a pretty competitive game for the better part of, say, 3.5-ish quarters, and it started to get away from South Point a little bit. But South Point led 7-0 at the half. I think it was a 19-yard passing touchdown from Ethan Hunt to I can't even remember the tailback's name. Yeah, it's Elijah Wilburn.
Yeah.
It was a 19-yard passing touchdown from freshman Ethan Hunt, which I will say I think
he looked really good.
I know they're losing their starter. I forget his last name, but it was Zathan Haney. They're losing him
really
this
good basketball
year,
player. Yeah,
and they haven't had him for the past 2 games, but I think they're in pretty good hands. Hunt's pretty good looking kid. He's left-handed. He's like 6'3". I think the program, or I should say Max Preps, had him at it was either 180 or 190, and you're obviously only going to get bigger. So I think they'll be okay. Obviously, they're going to lose Wilburn, and then I forget their other tailback's name. It's number 1, but I know they're losing him as well. But one of the better years they've had in a little while.
Hanshaw kid on the outside's going to be back.
Yep.
He's a good athlete.
But it was a 7-0 lead for South Point at the half, and then Portsmouth dropped 21 unanswered points in the second half. Chase Highland was over 100 yards rushing for the 3rd time this season. He had a rushing touchdown, and then Cam Williams, another freshman, he had a rushing touchdown, had a good night on the ground as well. And actually the final touchdown for them was a 75-yard double reverse passing touchdown from Cam Williams' older brother J.T. Williams to Landon Malone down the near sideline. I shouldn't say nearly, but Wilburn tried to strip.
I thought he was going to get it.
You could tell he was kind of sizing him up to get it, and it would have been a big play as they would have had the ball probably inside their own 10. And I think there was still 5 or 6 minutes left at that point, so definitely would have been a big game changer. Now, with the win, Portsmouth gives themselves an 88% chance to make the playoffs. Probably going to stay that way as they're at Ironton this week, which pretty much you could say for anybody on Ironton's schedule, it's going to be a tough week when you have to go to Ironton. Then South Point was already in the playoffs. They have Gallia at home, which is going to be another test. They're probably, they're playing 2 of the top 3 teams in the OVC.
But Hunt's only going to be ready now,
right?
Or anything else they'll face.
And we don't know. Maybe Haney will be back next week. Maybe he won't. We don't know. But 2 weeks under his belt now for Hunt. We'll see what happens. It's going to be a tough test against Gallia. Now, you get him at home, which can only make it a little bit better.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot on the line in terms of, actually, if they win, that would bump Gallia. I think that would bump, or no, if South Point, well, no, I guess Gallia is already below Fairland with the head-to-head, so that really doesn't matter too much. So not
but
really.
it would cost Gallia a home game I think they would.
Well, yeah, with playoff implications, definitely a lot on the line, especially for Gallia. I'm assuming South Point probably doesn't have a home game right now. A win might.
It would get them closer, but they'd still be
right. Anytime you only have, I mean, right now they're projected to finish 5-5. So I don't think a 6-4 team would have a home playoff game, but I mean, we'll see. First things first, they got to beat Gallia for us to even consider that. But yeah, should be.
Yeah, right now it's got them, if they would win, projected an 11 seed. So
still not a home
so
game,
right now 14 if they win at 11.
So it's more or less just a game. I mean, it's going to be. Well, I guess they did get a game against Fairland too, so that's pretty tough for him. 2 of his first 3 starts, one's against Fairland and one's against Gallia, but it seems like they're kind of grooming him to be the guy next year, so it's definitely a good experience for him, and should be I don't know if it'll necessarily be fun for South Point, depending on how the game will go. But I think the future is definitely bright for this team, especially considering what they've had. I mean, they have as many wins. I said it on the broadcast. They have as many wins this year as they've had the previous 3 years combined, right? It's their first non-losing season since 2013. And it's their first time since that time that I think they've had more than 4 wins. So
yeah, and I know some people are frown upon the bigger playoffs, which I understand. But this will be their second ever official trip to the playoffs.
I'm guessing they obviously didn't make it in 2013 because it was it 4 or was it 8?
It was 8 then. So. They made it when there was 4 teams in 1991, and then they made it in 2020 when if you won a 2, you're in the playoffs. Right. And they lost in the first round of that. So, I mean, that's kind of where they've been recently, but it seems like they're on the upswing a little bit. And yeah, as you mentioned with Haney, he was just, or not Haney, but Hunt, when he was warming up, I was very confused because I knew Haney was their quarterback, but he was throwing left-handed. I was like, he's a third baseman. It just didn't seem like it matched up, but I mean, hopefully Haney is able to get back healthy as soon as possible because he's a heck of a basketball player too for that really good South Point team.
One other game we'll look at was another high-scoring SVC matchup, just the Wild West over there in the SVC, and potentially another big scoring game coming up for Piketon this week. But as for Week 9, Piketon 44, Adena 41, and a nail-biter. Yeah,
so pretty much think about, I'm just going to say the Big 12.
No, that's what it is.
Because Udina is going to win the league. They have the best defense. So that's what Oklahoma had been doing, is they could score a lot of points, and they happen to have the best defense, so they're going to win the league. And that's, what it kind of comes down to, because every game this weekend, the winning team scored over 40. So, and then this one, the losing team scored 40 also.
40,
there were 8 lead changes in that game in Pike County. After every score, the lead switched. Except for there was a field goal for Adena at the end of the first half, which set up a lead change to start the second half.
That's surprising that they would kick a field goal because it's a school without a soccer program.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't necessarily think they have somebody that could kick. But
yeah, and apparently he's very good. So, and this is the first year the SVC hasn't had a kicker of the year.
There's just no award. I mean,
it's just going to be special teams player.
Special teams player. So that's...
It could be, but it probably won't be.
Well, I know that we've had, probably Walters has had, or even...
Walters and Crace have had...
I wasn't even thinking of Crace. I was thinking of Cutright as well. Yeah. There's somebody that's had a ton... I mean, didn't you say Walters has, 7 non-receiving... non-offensive touchdowns?
Yeah, he's got a bunch of non-offensive touchdowns, too. Him and Crace, or him and Cutright, yeah. And then Crace is the best punter in the league too, so that might give him some leeway. But speaking of Piketon and Adena, which is what we're covering here, is 8 lead changes. The last one was Luke Gallia hit Mason Thacker for a score with 5 minutes left to put them up 44-41. Adena drove a little bit, but was unable to get in field goal range to go for the tie, which is crazy to say.
That they were even thinking about it.
When I played, I didn't play football, I played soccer, but whenever I was in school, I think it was my junior year was the first year they let soccer kids come over and kick. At the time, the school was only letting you do one sport. I'm like, but it's kicking. So we had a couple soccer players went and kicked, and they were fine, but it wasn't great.
Right.
And now I believe there was 3 field goals made in the SVC this past weekend. So I mean, Westfall's kickers missed like 2 extra points all year. Hanks for Zane Trace hasn't missed any. Haynes from UNO has missed 1. The Watkins kid that I'm going to talk about here in a second for Adena, I don't know how many he's even missed, but it seems like he's not missing any. So there's good kickers across the SVC. So kudos to them. Like, as a kicking enthusiast, I really enjoy that. One of my most liked tweets for a while on SVC football was about a field goal being made in a game. Yeah. It was by, I think it was a Westfall kicker. But yeah, so Gallia hit Thacker with about 5 minutes left to play to more or less win the game. Gallia ran for 129 yards and a score. He also he threw for about 150, only 1 score. He did throw 3 interceptions in the game, so that was kind of a downfall for him there. But Buddy Wilson ran for 163 yards and 3 touchdowns. He missed last week's game and came back with a vengeance for the Red Streaks. They were, when we covered Piketon earlier in the year, they really struggled on the 2-point conversions, but they were really good on the 2-point conversions in this game. As Gallian ran in for a couple, and he also connected with McGuire for a couple also. So, big game for Piketon as they keep their slim playoff chances alive, as it's actually slimmer than I thought it was going to be. Mostly because Portsmouth beat South Point, so that really that was a big.
Did Piketon play South Point?
No, but because they're in the same
region.
They're in the same region, so it bumps them down a little bit. They needed that as a loss, but for Adena, Austin McGill ran in for 3 scores. Nate Dreitzler added a score as well. They also had a pick 6. I can't think of the name right now. But they had a player with a pick 6 in the game. This is horrible. And then Cody Watkins hit field goals from 38 and 43 yards.
2? 43.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, 43-yarder, but they were unable to get in field goal range, which sounds like if they could have got to
about the 30-yard line.
Yeah, about the 30, they probably would have had a chance.
That would have been a
long one.
Yeah,
but
that would have been about 45. But
yeah.
I mean, still 43-yarder.
Yeah.
That's insane. I wonder if he's a toe blower or if
so I don't know.
He's got like the traditional soccer approach to it. That's crazy. 43 yards.
Yeah, so pretty impressive for Adena in that aspect, but and this is gonna sound terrible. Probably Adena's best defensive performance in a while. They've been averaging giving up almost 50 points a game. Were able to get a couple stops, but unable to do so late. Piketon, as mentioned, they moved to 6-3, give themselves an outside chance at making the playoffs. They have Westfall coming up this week, as you mentioned, points. I don't think we're going to discuss that one, but Ride the Wave's going to be there.
Yeah.
And they're going to go nuts on that game because it's going to be so many points.
Seriously.
And Westfall still has an outside chance, which we'll talk about in the playoff implications in a little bit later.
Did you name their kicker?
Yeah, Cody
Watkins?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he's only a sophomore too,
nice.
So he's only going to get better.
Let's go. Put a 50-yarder in.
By your senior year, we want a 50-yarder.
Yeah, I won't be surprised if, also speaking of seniors, I wouldn't be surprised if UNIA sets up for a 50-yarder this week for Lucas, just because we're not sure what the record is, but
that would probably
be it. I know the UNIA record's 42.
Okay. So somebody's just going to run out of bounds on like the 33 33-yard line, and then snap it back to the 40 and boot it through. Hey, you got to do what you got to do. Stat pad the kicking yardage. I once had an argument with a coach that like the field goal distance was measured by where the ball was and not where it was a stupid. It was just
you weren't paying attention to the 10.
I was right. I was the one that said it was where they were kicking it, and my coach thought it was.
Oh, that's bad.
It was dumb, but it was funny at the time.
Yes, that's bad. I like it though.
All right, so one other game we have 2 more.
Yeah.
Last one for me, Vinton County, Nelsonville-York. This was hopeful to be our live stream of the week and ended up being a pretty competitive game. Vinton County takes it 13-7. They're first TVC Ohio title in 24 years. Their last one coming in 1999. So their first one in this millennium, in this decade. Garrett Brown on the ground, 19 attempts for 104 yards. Parker Schonborn had 74 yards and a rushing touchdown on 17 attempts. And Lane Habron had a rushing touchdown as well. And then for Nelsonville, Gavin Richards, who was a player we highlighted, it was either last week or the week before. He had a tough night on the ground, only 26 yards on 12 carries, so held way under his average yards per carry on the season. He did have the lone touchdown on the ground for the Buckeyes, which is not a name you usually say.
Only one.
You know, I figured it wasn't too common.
There's a Buckeye Valley.
I knew that.
And
probably a
Buckeye
Grove.
local. Buckeye local. Yeah.
Yeah, the Buckeyes dressed up like the Browns, kind of.
Yes.
We have a couple of Browns. Ironton looks a lot like the Browns. Nelsonville-York does. I mean, I guess Vinton County, or not Vinton County, I guess Wheelersburg could if they were brown, but I mean, they were black. So.
Yeah.
But for Vinton County, they're at home against Wellston. Potentially going to be the game that they clinch the outright TVC title. So if you want to see history be made, head over to Vinton County for that one. And then Nelsonville is at Athens, where they'll look to hopefully wrap up second place in the league. I know Nelsonville's
I think they're going to get a good seat.
Pretty prominent football school, historically. I know they have at least one state title I know we've talked about Dave Boston as their head coach. But the first time in a while we've seen Vinton County atop the TVC. It's always nice to, see a team that doesn't. I don't want to say that's not typically successful, as they've had successful seasons. I just mean successful to the point where you're winning the league. It's nice to see a team that doesn't, or at least in recent memory, hasn't had much of a reputation for winning the league. It's nice to see them finally break that poor streak and finally take the TVC.
I think it's actually a pretty big rivalry between Wellston and Vinton County. I mean, Garrett Brown's from Wellston.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So now also a big rivalry is that Nelsonville and Athens game.
I feel like Athens just hate. Athens has a rivalry with everyone.
Yeah, but here's the fun thing for Nelsonville. So if they win that game, which they're favored by 14 on Fantastic 50, they will get a rematch with Trimble in week 11, who they lost to. But those are their two big rivals.
Trimble and
Athens, So
they're rivals with Trimble too.
Yeah, because Trimble's right around.
Well, they're on the TVC Hawking.
Well, and they're in Athens County as well. So,
Athens, literally just. There's a ton of just steamed up rivalries in the TVC. It seems.
And then one thing that we're not going to talk about. Well, you talked about that game. I read somewhere where Nelsonville had less than 60 yards of total offense in that game.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough sledding for. I mean, just look at the score. I mean, 13-7. I mean, it was just a slugfest. But Vinton County pulled it out. I think Vinton County was favored by one. Yeah. Right. So
Vinton County has given up. And I'm going to go backwards from this: 7, 12, 0, 0, 13, 0, 6, 8, 21. That's all.
And that was
how
many points they've scored?
Given up.
Oh, given up.
Yeah. So in that Athens game where they gave up 13, they had 2 pick sixes in the last couple of minutes to seal the game. So their defense has been flying around all year. They've been really good defensively. So even though they are pretty much a lock to be, they got a 32% chance to be a home team, but they're most likely going to be on the road in week 11, but they're going to have a chance against whoever they play because that defense is nasty for them.
Absolutely.
And they hadn't won in 24 years, and shout out to the Union of Shermans. We're not going to talk about that game because it was a lot less close than I think a lot of people envisioned, but Uniota wins their first league championship in 25 seasons, since 1998. So
not over yet.
No, but they got a clinch of a share.
Clinch of the share.
Yeah, so that's where I'm not going to go deeper beyond that. So I'm not going to go into the further history. We'll do that next week, hopefully. Yeah. If not, we'll talk about one of the bigger upsets in the state
of all time.
Yeah. So moving on to a game that I think on paper didn't look like it was going to be that close. And reading Carson's article, it didn't sound like it was ever like super close, but still, it only ends up being a 10-point game. Ironton beats Gallia Academy 27-17. Gallia actually turned it over late in the game when they had a chance to cut it to 3. But the Fighting Tigers clinched a share of their final OVC title with a hard fart road win at Gallia. So so I'm an idiot, but they started out their scoring in the first quarter as Zane Williams had a short touchdown run before Gallia's Caleb Stout connected on a 37-yard field goal to make it a 7-3 game. Ironton was able to add another score before the half when Bailey Thacker connected with Eris Pittman for a score. Then early in the second half, he threw a bubble screen to Sean Terry, who went 18 yards for a score. Not his best catch of the weekend, as he also caught an offer from Michigan. Yeah, so I mean,
there you go.
Yeah, it's been a pretty decent fall for Sean Terry so far. He went 18 yards for a score to put them up 20-3. Gallia was able to strike back as Braylon Rathburn found Joey Darnsborough to make it a 20-10 game early in the fourth quarter. Then, Braden Schreck went under center, and then went around the end for a 59-yard score, which seemed to be the dagger at the time, making it 27-10. But Rathburn found Kenyon Franklin for a 14-yard score on the next drive. They would get the ball back one more time, but Sean Terry, of course, pulled in his second interception of the game to close out the 27-17 win for Ironton, who will no longer be in the OVC after this season. They'll still play some of the teams. I believe they play Portsmouth, Fairland, and I think Gallia still.
And
they're just going independent.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So they are going to, I know they're going to still play Wheelersburg and Ironton.
And Jackson, probably.
I don't know why I said Ironton. I meant Jackson. Yeah, so they're going to play those schools for sure. I'm sure they're going to play some schools from West Virginia. But, with how good they've been the last few years, and some of the recruits that are being nationally looked at, it probably benefits them to up their schedule a little bit, as they've gotten to the state championship game a couple of times over the last 5 years and fell short both times. So for them, if they want to take that next step, I guess it makes a little more sense to go independent. So they've got the buses for it. Have you seen
the Nike buses?
Yeah, the Nike buses are sweet. So we'll still cover Ironton in the future, but
it's like they're changing location. They're just jumping out of the OVC.
Yeah. So, and then that, helps the teams in the OVC out a little bit, have a better chance to win a league title. Fairland, which we'll talk about later in our power rankings, is very good, and they just annihilated them this year. So it's it's definitely a program on the rise, and for Gallia, it's a really competitive outfit there, and they'll go into week 10 looking to get another win.
Yeah, I'm assuming you saw the graphic too for Ironton, where it was like showing like their players past high school.
Yeah.
They had I'm just looking at it. I don't know why I said last 5 years they've had 15 players signed or offered Division I. I'm assuming scholarships.
Yeah.
They've had 5 straight district player of the years, 30 plus all district players, 20 all state players, 1 Mr. Ohio finalist, 3 state championship appearances, and I don't know how accurate this is, but they're claiming $25 million estimated in scholarship value, which that's pretty wild.
Yeah. And I'm guessing that'll get adjusted to NIL stuff coming up in the future, because that's where everything's going. But I will say next year, going out on a limb, Sean Terry's probably going to be in that. Maybe not a finalist for Mr. Football, but he'll be talked about because he's.
Oh, is he only a junior?
He's only a junior. Yeah. Right. So, I will say I was right about him in the preseason, which he had 3 offers, so it's hard to not be right.
Didn't their freshman quarterback who doesn't even play get a D1 offer from somebody?
Yeah, and I would guess he'll probably be the quarterback next year, or the Shrek kid will be, because he's only a junior as well. So, they've pretty good program down there.
All right, one impact player for us, really not from the previous week. Well, yeah, I guess it is. Broke the, or I should say, Jase Hurd of Waverly.
Yeah, it's a career, but also
it is a career. Okay,
but he had a big game.
So not necessarily from the previous week, more just his entire career, but it was broke in week 9. Jase Hurd breaks Zach Montavon breaks Zach Montavon's career rushing record at Waverly, and also recorded over 300 rushing yards. I don't know if it was at Northwest or at home. Either way, on turf, so not a lot of
it was home
against Northwest.
Yeah, so I think it was senior night. So Montavon was, I don't remember if he was my age or a year or two younger. So that record stood up for about 20 years. 331 yards and 5 scores against the Mohawks on Friday, and like usually if someone has that big of a game, like you'll see on the forums, like people will be like, "Oh, I can't believe he was still running late." But like the Northwest people were like, "Man, we couldn't stop him at all." So it was just he would break through the line, and we saw him against West. Had one where, what do you like to say? When the guy gets
shot out of a cannon.
Yeah, and just flew down the field for.
I definitely did not say shot out of a cannon, though. It was
shot out of a.
No,
shot.
It was so messed up.
Yeah, that was the bad one.
Yeah, well, that was like the first time I had said it.
Yeah,
and like I don't know, I was trying to think of it, and I don't want to talk about it.
It's okay.
It was a good game.
Yes, but so Hurd over 4,000 career rushing yards, which is just insane. Just been an outstanding player for them. I believe all 4 years of high school. I know for at least the last 3 years. I remember watching him as a sophomore and being like, this kid's only a sophomore. Mm-hmm. And then you see him, and he's not as big as you would think, because he looks bigger on the field, but he doesn't run like a shorter person. Like if he's going to have I think he's going to have a chance to play college baseball also. So, I mean, whatever he's going to want to do at the next level, he may not play immediately, but he's the type of kid that I think is going to work his tail off and be able to play at the next level. So congratulations to him on an outstanding career so far, as he'll have at least 2 more games left.
Go to Mount Healthy this week, which
was
tough. Be a bit rough.
But they're probably going to rely on him pretty heavily because how much he can do in the run game, and he also does a good job receiving as well. So
I was going to look up Mount Healthy's record, but
they are like 6-4, or 6-3, something like that. Pretty good teams.
Like Clinton Massey last year when they were 5-5.
Yeah, so I think they lost to Massey, and of course the Wi-Fi just went out on me. There it is. It's back. So let me pull them up real quick. They are actually an 11-point underdog. Mount Healthy is 7-2. Mount Healthy beat the Little Miamians. I can't remember their name. We played them in baseball.
I thought you were being serious.
No, I got to look it up now because it's going to bother me. They're the Panthers. I didn't think they were the Panthers. Their school colors are the same as Bishop Leger's, though.
I don't know what color those
green and yellow.
Oh, green and...
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they beat Little Miami. They beat Hamilton Ross. They beat Wilmington, who's having a really good year at 7-2. Cane Pride. That's right, bub. They only lost 28-26 to Clinton Massey. Yeah. Probably going to be a fun game. Beat Bishop Fenwick. Beat Cincinnati Northwest, who's not very good. But they lost to Harrison, who's 6-3. Beat Belmont 48-0. Beat Talawanda 46-9.
Talawanda,
it's in Oxford.
That's a name.
Yeah.
In Oxford, so it's by Miami.
Yeah, they're the Brave. I didn't know they were just the Brave. I assumed they were the Brave. Yeah.
Just one?
Just one.
They
singular.
are the Brave.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's like Hofstra. Hofstra's the Pride.
Well, the Pride makes more sense because the Pride.
Yeah, but it's
like
not as cool.
flock.
It's not as cool as their old name. Hofstra was the Flying Dutchman at one point.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Yeah, why would you change that? Like, that's not offensive at all. Like, I get why you changed some of these offensive names, but
no, the Flying Dutchman, that's sweet.
Yeah. But yeah, our tournament win when I was at Wilmington Cane Pride was over Talawanda. They were the second smallest Division I school. We were the smallest. Yeah, real depressing to have to get. Then we had to play Mason the next day, who was the biggest Division I school. Whatever. They only had like 4 players get drafted from that team.
That's not too bad.
No biggie. Yeah, so tough one for Waverly coming up this week, as we got very off topic there. But once again, congratulations to Jase Hurd, and they will be playoff bound just
here in a couple weeks.
Yeah, we don't know who they'll play but we will talk about it next week.
Absolutely.
On Overtime.
Presented
by McDonald's.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll talk about some playoff chances, whether it looks like they'll be in, whether they have a slimmer chance, or whether they just have very little, like they'd have to have a lot of stuff go in their direction. So we'll talk about some teams that are right on the bubble, and it looks like they're going to make it. Minford, Portsmouth, and Coldgrove. I know we've talked a little bit about Portsmouth already and how they're, what is it, an 88%?
It was 88% chance, but it's dropped because I think a couple other things happened that weren't beneficial for them. So we'll actually go to them first. Last week, if they won, they're an 88% chance. As of now, they're projected to be out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So a loss puts them at 50-50, like literally a 50% chance. So let me see what they need to have happen. They need Bexley to beat Worthington Christian, Zanesville, Logan. I don't know what that has to do with anything. Frederickstown, the Freddies need to beat Centerburg.
The Freddies. I love it.
They need Valley to beat Minford because them and Minford are pretty close for the last spot. And they need Coldgrove to beat Rock Hill, which also I don't know what that has to do with anything because it's not directly correlated with them. But Portsmouth is right now at a 50-50 chance. They would be right around the 16th seed if they won. So I'm going to look at seeding probabilities really quick right now. Portsmouth is 38% to be the 16 seed, 12% to be the 12 seed or the 15 seed. So right now it's right up in the air for Portsmouth. Minford needs a win.
I was going to say you had them as likely in, but it's more or less kind of winning in with them. It says at 4 wins they have an 8% chance, but if they pick up a win, they're at 92. So
much more likely if they get the win. Now, I don't know if and this is where it takes someone smarter than me to be able to identify if that game against Oak Hill would have helped.
Oh, that was a win. Sorry, just forget I even said
Oh, no, it's like
72%.
It's all good. I know what you're looking at because I saw that too.
60. As of now, they have a 67% chance.
72% if they win? Is that right?
A 72% chance with a win in next game and a 1% with a loss.
So they're done if they lose.
Right, so they're more of a winning in type team. And who do they have?
They have Valley.
Valley, okay.
Yeah. So
who we've seen show it's obviously been a bit of a down year for them, but
they almost got Grandview Heights last week.
Right.
We won't talk about that, how it finished, but someone's going to go for 2 and get it at some point.
Hope maybe this weekend.
Maybe it'll be a big game we watch. But yeah, so.
Well, no, remember it was Chesapeake and Minford, I think. I mean, we obviously we
so if that keeps Minford out, that'd be but yeah, Minford. I think what I've been told before is if you play a team that's winless, it's actually better to not play them
than to win.
Yeah, because where it divides your points up different at a lower level. So it actually is slightly beneficial to not play that game than to win it. Is what I've heard before. I don't know why. So I can't explain that. Someone could probably explain it on why that is. I'm not very good at math. I do understand that at the end of the first half, if you have 14 seconds left, you should probably throw the ball instead of run it. If you're going to try to get a field goal, a la the Giants yesterday, which may have cost them the game. But that's neither here nor there. Now, who was the other that we would talk about?
It was Coldgrove. And I'll say one of the cool things about the Drew Pasture 50 thing is the tab that's teams to root for.
Yes, I love it.
Because obviously it's showing you things that you need to happen. One of them, Greenup County over a non-OHSA opponent, which I don't even think Greenup County is an OHSA.
No, they're not. They're Kentucky. But that would be an extra win.
And then they also need Meigs over Alexander, which... Man, Meigs is 1-8, and Alexander is 2-7.
That's good.
As of now, Alexander is a 13-point underdog. So it looks like Megs will win. In terms of playoff chances, just says Cole Grove is in.
Yeah.
Playoff scenarios.
But I
mean, have to interpret those. I'm not as used to.
But if they lose, they could still be out. I mean,
it's not likely.
Yeah, but they're likely in.
Well, it says with 4 wins, it says 4 wins. They're 99 projected to be the 14 seed.
Yeah, but it's still got their size could be the 11 to out.
Right.
Yeah, they could be out, and I think that would take like a Portsmouth beating Ironton, which is very unlikely. Speaking of very unlikely, oh no, we'll get to that. Oh, and the winning in, Chillicothe.
Oh,
if they beat Jackson, they're in. Probably not going to happen.
No, probably not, unfortunately.
I believe, let me look up Sims Valley real quick, because I think that was one that I could have put a similar message that I put with the Chillicothe. We are struggling with these
I've hit this mic a few times today.
Yeah, mine I think I got fixed, but it was just because I knocked the things off. Right now, Sims Valley would be 98% in with a win over South Gallia. They're 23-point underdogs, so that one's not as bad as I thought it was. There's a couple teams I did not put on here. Like South
Valley is a win and in. They have like 2 wins, don't they?
They only have 2 wins. Yep.
So a 3-win team. And now obviously they're playing Minford, which it's going to be a little tough. Although Minford's record may not reflect it offensively, I think they're one of the stronger teams. I mean, a guy like Caudle, who I think is only a sophomore or a junior. He's not a senior. I know that. Definitely one of the more explosive guys. You have Jeff Pika, who they'll lose next year, but I'm assuming they have somebody that can fill in right away.
Right.
Pika's one of those. Pika's a lot faster than you would think a guy his size would be. It's kind of.
So
I don't even know what word I'm looking for, but
deceptive.
Yeah, deceptive. Yeah. Like you wouldn't think somebody that big could run
move
away.
Like he does. Yeah,
because you look at him, it's like, oh, this is a goal.
Especially when you see him in basketball.
Yeah.
Like this dude's a fast running back, and he's just like, yeah, he is. But Valley, if they win as 100% in, they would be the 13th seed at 3-7, which is how close they were last week. Grandview Heights is 6-3, and they lost in double overtime by a point. So I mean, they are showing to be more than capable here at the end of the year. Once again, only 1, maybe 2 seniors. I feel like I saw a second senior board when I was down there for them in football. But yeah, a lot of good things coming for Valley. So even if they don't win that game against Minford, it's still,
Well, I think the fact that they even have a chance, the fact that they even have a look, like if you told them that 6 weeks ago, they're like, no way.
Yeah.
I mean, they've picked up a couple wins. They had the win, obviously, over Northwest.
Yeah.
And
beat Oak Hill.
And then they beat Oak Hill as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think although they're 2-7, it has been a better season than they thought it would be after, say, like week 3.
Yeah. So, a lot of, I think they're a well-coached team, and, they are young, and, most of their skill players are sophomores, and then a few juniors that will be back next year. But, so it's exciting for them coming up in the future. And then,
McClain.
McClain, if they can win the Rotary Bowl for the first time in a few years over Hillsboro, they'll be in Region 16, which I don't think would be the most fun matchup for them.
Well, it says, I believe they still have.
Yeah, right now they're at 24%. They'd be a 3% chance with a loss.
Mm-hmm.
Actually,
and a
99% chance with a win. Which they would most likely play Cincinnati Taft, which wouldn't be real fun. But but
I bet
43% chance to play Taft, 38% chance to play Uniota.
Okay,
which would be the Purple and Gold Bowl.
Be a little former non-league.
Yeah,
week 2 match.
And nothing against
for 3 or 4 years.
Nothing against Uniota, but I think I would prefer to play Uniota than Taft.
Yeah,
like Uniota is very good this year, but still, they don't have the depth of athletes as a Taft does. But you know what? You win, you're in. So you can beat your Rotary Bowl opponents. But Hillsboro is, already in. and they're a 15-point favorite in that. But it's at home for McClain. They, Andrew Potts is.
And we'll actually talk about this game here.
Yeah.
In the next segment.
Yeah. So, so not to give away too much on that. But, Chillicothe, Southeastern are both teams that if they win, they're in. But
it's not. They're playing against the teams that are, as of now, going to for Jackson. They at least have a share. I think Jackson has already won it outright.
Yeah.
Unioda has clinched a share.
Yeah, and Jackson is. I believe they're not as big a favorite because Chillicothe's played some teams Chillicothe does a good job defensively.
Yeah.
They just have trouble scoring of it. But man, Jackson is just, I mean, they only won 22-0 over Logan. They lost 35-14 to Ironton, but 28-20 over Wheelersburg, 56. I'm just going to go with their points scored after that. 56, 44, 49, 42, 63, 62.
So basically, if I'm betting on high school sports, I'm taking Jackson over about 45.5 points because they haven't scored under 40 in 6 weeks. So
yeah, and they're giving up some points, but at the same time, it's like they're not super competitive games. And I believe it was last week where Wolford had 4 touchdowns in the first quarter. So
wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. So he would have been one of our impact players if we didn't just talk about him last week, as he's going to.
We've probably talked about him 3 or 4 times.
We talked about Hurd a lot too.
Yeah.
But
it's been a little while though. I feel probably since their game against West in week 5.
I
think, probably about the last time. And then some long shots, Fairfield Union, Piketon, Westfall. Those are 2 teams that actually play each other, as we've previously mentioned. And then Rock Hill is also in there as well, another victim of the failed 2-point conversion in Rock Hill.
Yep. So Rock Hill, if they win, they would be, I guess it'd be 52%. But they're, not favored over Dawson Bryant, but, give yourself a chance. They would be the 16 seed if they won that. Then if we go, the thing that benefits Westfall over Piketon in that game, as far as seeding goes.
And Westfall's actually favored in that game.
Yeah, Westfall's favorite in that game. Their region is not as deep. They would be a 53% chance if they won. Now they would have to play Valley View, who is ridiculous. But, win and give yourself a chance. So 53% chance if they can beat Piketon. They're a 1-point favorite. Currently, I believe Piketon would only be a 6% chance if they win. So
Gosh, that's tough.
Yeah, so they're in the long shot. I think Westfall would still need some help. It's just that
if they win, if somehow Piketon were to get in, that's going to play Iron. Most likely, the opponent would be Ironton in the first round as well. They would need. Yeah, I mean, if you just look at some of these, they would need Oak Hill to beat Northwest, which that would be Oak Hill's first win on the season.
Yeah.
Goshen over Batavia, I don't know a whole lot.
Goshen's not very good.
Bexley over Worthington Christian, I don't really know. Colegrove over Rock Hill, I would think Colegrove probably wins that game, but it's kind of like a
toss-up.
Well, it's kind of like a 5-leg parlay. You're going to need more than just one of those legs to hit.
And they're kind of some long shots. Now, like Westfall needs Schroeder Padilla to beat Gamble Montessori. Like that's one that's like, who knows? Tri-County North, which I used to think was Tri-Valley, over Twin Valley South, which hilariously, there's not a Tri-County South, there's not a Twin Valley North, but they're the same school district. You're welcome. I had a college classmate that coached basketball at Twin Valley South for a while. So, and then like Reading over Marymount, like that, like things like that could happen. So, for Westfall, it's just kind of, they've got an outside chance.
They're they're favored this week. Now that obviously doesn't mean a whole lot. Is really when you have a 1-point spread, it's just kind of pick them anyway.
Yeah,
it's going to be 2 high-powered offenses, both teams that have struggled defensively, at least in comparison to how strong their offenses have been. So, I think this is going to be about as Big 12 as it gets, and I think that game is at Piketon.
It's at
Westfall. I think that's the furthest trip you make in the SVC. That's got to be like 90 minute drive. It's at least 80 anyway. It's over an
definitely hour. A little over an hour. The good thing though for them is you take 23,
right.
Which is a little out of the way, but it's the fastest way. And you can kind of avoid some traffic stuff. Now, Fairfield Union right now is 1% chance with a win over Taze Valley. So they would need a lot of help. Like they don't even have games listed that they would need help with because they're such a long shot, but, good season for them. You know, right now 5-4, went 5-5 last year, but for the most part, 2017 was their last winning season, so they could get back to that. And before that, they hadn't had a winning season since 2009. So for how good Fairfield Union is in on the pitch, they have struggled. And you didn't have to shake your head like that. You know, they have gotten 4-6 2 years ago, 5-5 last year. Chance to go 6-4 this year. So just positive steps moving forward for them.
It's sort of interesting how as good of a soccer program is they have none of those kids kick because it's the rough kid that kicks.
Yeah.
Because that one game we were talking about him having like over 300 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns, and he was like 5 for 5 on PATs too. So they need to get rough out on the pitch.
Yeah.
It seems like just use him as kind of a goon.
Yeah.
Go grab a red card and just blast somebody and then just go back out onto the football field a couple days later.
The suspension might actually carry over into that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if the end of the season happens. So, yeah, I don't know how that works.
Like if
I have no idea, actually.
Like if somebody played, like if a player played soccer and their school had a policy where like if you get a red card, you're suspended for one game. Would that affect if you're the football team's kicker, are you suspended for that? Or are you just suspended for soccer? I mean, it would probably I'm sure there's no like, it just probably school to school depends on how they interpret it. But
yeah, so moving on, we've got some games to preview. We got a lot of teams.
Last time in the regular season.
Yeah, we got a lot of teams that are in. And then we'll more than likely what we'll preview next week will be like the teams playing each other within our area. But we'll definitely at least discuss the likelihood of teams moving on that. Right now with Uniota, they're probably going to play Dayton Dunbar. We're not going to know very much about Dayton Dunbar. They're one of the more improved teams in their region, but I don't know what that even means because how good's their league and whatnot. So I know they were really good at basketball for a long time. Daquan Cook he was a first-round draft pick for the Buckeyes in basketball. The year that Oden and Conley were there. 07? Yeah, so he was a freshman with that class. So. Our Carson Francis sending a message right now. I'm not going to check it until after. But yeah, so our first game to watch is more than likely going to be our.
I would just go ahead and say it is.
Yeah, it will be because as I talked to Mr. Trevor Thomas, that we referenced on the first episode. Also in this one, the AD over at Zane Trace, we're going to be over there at Paint Valley at Zane Trace unless a massive upset happens. It's for second place in the SVC. Paint Valley is right now, I believe they're going to have a home game regardless of what happens in this one.
Second year in a row.
Yeah, second year in a row. If, let's say they lose, they are 100% a home game. So they're already in. They're projected to be the 6th seed if they lose. If they win, they'd be likely the 4th seed. They could possibly get up to the 3 seed. So for them, a guaranteed maybe second home game on the line. For Zane Trace, a win, and they are guaranteed a home game and likely for 2. It'd be 65% chance to have 2 home games. But for Zane Trace, it seems like they're getting healthy at the right time. They played Uniota very tight 2 weeks ago. Carter Langley went 13 for 13 passing against Southeastern on Friday. I don't think that happens very often. They had a bunch of different guys score. Blake Phillips has done a good job running the ball for them on the year. Riley Hartzall has as well. Bryce Johnson, only a freshman, had like a 57-yard touchdown run for them in his one touch. That kid's going to be, that's a name. Like, I'm sure he'll be their starting running back next year. He's also,
you're going to lose Phillips and Hartzell.
Yeah, and he's around like 80 tackles as a freshman. So, very good young athlete coming for them. I would guess it'll be Gunnar McCullough will be their quarterback next year, as he's started a couple games for them this season. But having Langley back gives them some nice options, throwing and obviously running, as he does a really good job there. Aiden Dunn, Silas Stewart, both juniors, are going to be back for them next year, but they both do a good job on the outside. I believe it's Jaden Higgins is a sophomore that starts for them. They tend to go three wide a lot, and that's where Unioto really exposed Paint Valley, was through the passing game. So I think up front these teams are going to be similar in a way. I think Spencer Brower is going to be the best player in the trenches between the two teams, but Hunter Freeman's really tough for Paint Valley. I think that this game, Zane Trace will run the ball a little bit more than Unioto. Paint Valley does a lot of their stuff that they get is off of the running game. Braylon Robertson easily leads the SVC in rushing. As of now, he may be Joey Wright from Westfall is going to be close to 1,000. He may get it this week, but Braylon Robertson right now is the only one over 1,000 yards rushing. Peyton Fauber is going to be close to 1,000 yards rushing, but he's over 1,000 yards passing on the year. Carson Freese had a really good year on the outside for Paint Valley. So the biggest thing is going to be, to me, how much can Zane Trace throw the ball on Paint Valley. I think they're probably 7 to 10 point favorite in this game. I know Fantastic 50 has it at a 6. Just from watching film on Paint Valley, I think Zane Trace is a little better up front. And I like the way they throw the ball a little bit more. But I think it's going to be a good game. Yep. It's going to be good for us to get out there. Hopefully the rain holds off.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
The positive, if the rain doesn't hold off, is it's turf. So, at least the field won't get too muddied up. But
could be kind of slippery, though.
Yeah, it could be a slippery game for sure. So make sure you tune in for that one on Friday. Either way.
You said you were never saying that again.
Did I?
I thought so. Or maybe you said football Friday night or
that's
something.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that. But I do like using Friday because it makes me happy. Even though, a lot of my days are
Fry booze.
No, I was going to say like Thursday.
Oh, Wednesday.
Wednesday. Yeah, I get a lot of exciting days at this point. So, so it should be a fun one to watch.
All right, so another game we're going to talk about is one we talked about previously for McClain. It was a win and in game for the Tigers, as they'll host Hillsboro in Week 10 action. What do we call it? The Rotary Bowl? Rotary. I'd never heard that before.
Yeah, they got a Rotary Club in Greenfield or Hillsboro. I don't know. Maybe it's located somewhere in Highland County.
Somewhere.
I just know our friends over at the Highland County Press talk about the Rotary Bowl, and I like Steve Porsche. So.
All right. Well, nonetheless, both teams come into the game 5-4, but a little bit different in the league. As Hillsboro's 3-1, McClain is 1-3. Hillsboro looking to clinch out second place as they picked up a big win last week, 14-13 against Miami Trace. Now, they actually played that game without sophomore Jevin Hostel, who on the season has been pretty versatile for the Indians, has 764 yards rushing on 81 attempts. He also has 11 rushing touchdowns, and he also has 3 receiving touchdowns. So he's sort of been a do-it-all complimentary back behind Austin Barrett, who, get ready for this, has 1,765 rushing yards and 15 rushing touchdowns, averaging 7.6 yards per carry. That's definitely going to be a guy they're going to miss next year, but I think Hostel will do a great job stepping in to that role, as long as he obviously stays at Hillsboro. And then for McClain, a tough one last week, which typically has been the case for any FAC school when you go up against Jackson. It was 62-14 in favor of the Ironmen. It's a team we've talked about a lot, more so at the beginning of the year when it was still non-conference play, as I think they started off 2-1 in that regard. Well, actually, they would have had more. I think they started off 4-1 in the non-league, something like that. They started off the year 4-1, and they're 1-3 in their last 4. So it's been a little bit tougher down the stretch in comparison to the beginning of the year. But Andrew Potts and Caden Penwell have been a great combination for the Tigers all season long. And then Drake Stapleton has been a very solid quarterback for them as well. If they win, they're in the playoffs. So a lot on the line for them. I think Hillsboro has already clinched a spot as they've had some pretty big impact wins and some big performances in losses as well. So should be a fun time. If you're in the area, head over to McClain, the City of Beauty, or excuse me, the School of Beauty.
Yes. Not a beauty school, but the School of Beauty. But let me double check. Yeah, it's already in and pretty much locked into the 10 or 11 seed right now for Hillsboro. So they'll be on the road. I don't know how good Salina is, but Salina is a haul from Hillsboro. So
How do you spell that?
Celina. Celina. It's right by St. Mary's, who has a awesome lake. Once bought a dog from Salina.
2 hours and 16 minutes.
From Hillsboro?
Yep.
Yep. So that's
up to 3 hours.
Yeah, it depends on the way they go. So that's a haul.
I don't know why you would go this way. Has them going to Columbus first and then over to Salina, which makes no sense.
Why wouldn't you go to
33?
Why wouldn't you go to Courthouse and then over to 75?
That's the way. The way that it has them going for 216 is right through Dayton.
Yeah. So that's the way I went. And
you went to Salina?
I've been to Salina twice.
Nice. Actually,
I've been there 3 times because I played in a baseball tournament over there.
They're up there, in the northeast-ish corner.
Yeah, they're in the area that is. If you're going to say they're good at football, you're going to put a V in front of it for very. Yeah, that area is very good at football. But yeah, St. Mary's Memorial is one of their rivals, and St. Mary's is. I once watched St. Mary's Memorial get ran over by some Jeeps from South
Webster.
Yeah. How's that for a regional game in basketball where you got South Webster? Look up that South Webster to St. Mary's, Ohio.
151.
There's
an hour 51.
There is no way. But
St. Mary's.
Yeah. So
what did you think it was?
About 3.
I mean, it was 2.
Yeah, but still, that's hours. That's a big difference. But yeah, they played at the barn, which is a dump, up at the fairgrounds. And me and my brother went over and watched, and it was not pretty. Them Jeeps were. It wasn't. I don't think it was the year they won the state. I think it was the year before. But yeah. So should be a good game in the Rotary Bowl. Mm-hmm. Big rivalry game there. I believe they probably have some good crowds. For some reason, whenever I think of the Rotary Bowl, I think of baked beans. Don't ask me why. I just feel like there's baked beans there. I feel like it's a fall thing. Chili.
Just go to your next game.
Yeah, we're going to go to the next game with Hamilton Township at Logan Elm and MSL championship game. Title on the line. Hamilton already locked up at least a share with an impressive 31-28 victory over Bloom Carroll. Bloom Carroll's first league loss in a few years. Actually, sadly, missed a field goal at the end. 43-yarder went wide left. Hamilton, I think when people looked at their schedule, I don't know how good they'll compete, but man, their numbers are ridiculous. They average 45 points a game. They do give up 18 points a game, so they're not like a lockdown defensive team. Logan Elm scores 35.8 points a game while giving up 19.2 points a game. For Hamilton, Josh Woods, a senior, has thrown for 1,804 yards, completing 69.6% of his passes on the year. 26 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So just does not turn the ball over. And then it gets kind of crazy from there. Javon McBride, only a sophomore, has reeled in 51 catches for 1,019 yards. 16 of those 26 touchdowns have gone to him. Nadir Langston has rushed for 1,413 yards, averages 8.3 yards a carry. He has 18 scores on the ground, 8 games with 100-plus yards rushing. But he's also got 443 yards receiving and 5 touchdowns. So more than likely, the ball is either going to Nadir Langston in a handoff, or him in the air, or Javon McBride in the air, and nobody else. But they're still averaging 45 points a game, despite being pretty much a 3-headed monster. But that 3-headed monster appears to be very good. For For Logan Elm, Aaron Walters has thrown for 2,161 yards, 21 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Landon Thompson and Michael Bach give the Braves a nice 1-2 punch in the backfield, both averaging over 6 yards a pop. But Thompson has 19 touchdown runs on the season. They have 3 receivers that get a lot of touches with Camden Red, Carson Summers, and Hunter Kersey. Kersey more the possession receiver out of those 3, but they all are over 450 yards receiving, giving Walters a variety of looks and options on the attack. Red, I believe, has 8 touchdowns of the season, so it's a really good offense for Logan Elm. They have a chance to make it a 3-way share between them and Hamilton, Logan Elm, and Bloom Carroll. I believe Hamilton might be favored kind of heavy in this game, just especially based off of that win over Bloom Carroll last week. It's actually only an 11-point spread right now. It's at Logan Elm. We saw them against Bloom Carroll, had a pretty good crowd, in week 7, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is another big crowd with the chance to win it. A lot of seniors. Walter's only a junior, but most of the other skill position players are seniors. So it's a big game for Logan Elm to have a chance to win their first championship. Let me see. It's been a while, but I don't think it's like a crazy amount of time since they won the league. I would say it's actually longer ago than I thought. Was that your neck?
You hear that?
Yeah. 2011, they actually shared the title that year. I think that might have been the crazy year. They, like 3 teams had 1 loss that year as well. Or no, it was 2 teams had 1 loss and 2 teams had 2 losses, and it all came down to the last week. So, yeah, so it's been since 2011 since they've won the MSL. So, they got a chance to do it on Friday night.
And one final game that is more or less, is quite literally the SOC 2 title game for the second season in a row. West and Wheelersburg come into week 10 with undefeated records within the league. For West, it was a 49-19 win over Oak Hill, a team that Wheelersburg did not play, which is why they're 5-3 through 9 weeks. Mason Parker, answered the question, what is this team going to do without Ryan Sissel? Well, they're going to have 1,416 yards with 16 rushing touchdowns on 9.8 yards per carry. He has been over 100 rushing yards in every game they have played this year. And then Jeffrey Bishop is about as versatile as they come. We caught a glimpse of that in, I think it was week 5 on that Saturday
night.
Jeffrey Bishop has 364 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns, 19 catches for 431 yards, 9 receiving touchdowns, 1 kick return for a touchdown. That's 17 total touchdowns for the Senators this season, to go along with 7 interceptions, 4 of those coming in one night. But nonetheless, 7 interceptions through 9 games. And then Cole Tipton's done a great job transitioning from wide receiver to quarterback, has 633 passing yards, 10 touchdown to 2 interception ratio, so great for him. He's gotten it done when they needed him to, and then also has 370 rushing yards with 6 rushing touchdowns. And then for Wheelersburg, you look at their overall record, and it's 5-3, which is a little bit misleading, right? They had a 51-0 win over, at Minford last week. Now their losses are to Ironton, Jackson, at Ironton, at Jackson, and then at home against Harvest Prep, which I don't really think it mattered if you were at Harvest Prep or at home, but those are the 3 teams Wheelersburg has lost to. I don't think that's any reason to discredit them a whole lot.
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
They would still have more fans at Harvest Prep than Harvest Prep would.
Probably, because Harvest Prep
has no fans.
I've never seen Harvest Prep play. I know they played. I think that game against Berg was at Chillicothe last year. Yeah. So I'm guessing that would have been my best chance to get a glimpse at their fan base. But like I said, second season in a row that West and Wheelersburg will play for the SOC 2 title in week 10. It's hard to pick a winner for this game because, I want to say Wheelersburg, but West has been pretty impressive this year. I haven't seen a lot of Wheelersburg, especially in terms of like stats.
I just feel like their last 2 weeks have just been so impressive.
Right, 51-0 against Minford, and then
40-7 against Waverly, who's a good team.
And I mean, we've talked like the game against Waverly, and a game where Waverly really, at least offensively, didn't play great. I mean, they've turned the ball over like 5 times, and West still only beat them by 3, I think it was. Was it 24-21 was the final of that one?
Yeah.
Because I think Holbrook made a, like, the chip shot was like 25 yards, and then Wheelersburg beats them 41 to, or whatever you said.
40 to 7,
and then 51-0 over Menford, a team that West beat 34 to 7, something like that. I don't know.
Here's a playoff quirk for you. West wins rematch in week 11 at West, more than likely.
They would play each other again.
More than likely, yes.
I'm rooting for West then. That would because we might be able to get down there for that game.
Yeah,
if that were to happen. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. So, this is it's a big rivalry. It's a healthy rivalry. Both very good fan bases, good programs. And then, last year, West was able to get the win at home. Let's see.
Like 7-0, wasn't it? Or 14 to 7?
It was low scoring. I know that.
Yeah. If West's defense comes to play, I wouldn't expect it to be in the way. Because I don't think West is really typically high scoring just because of the way their offense operates.
It was 14-7 last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, so should be another great game. And I think, all those games we just covered, get out and support those teams, and should be some really good games. Let's just hope the weather holds off. Because that's usually
we haven't had rain
that's
all
the
year.
problem.
Now, we did have a little sprinkle that first Thursday down at Portsmouth.
Yeah, I remember during halftime.
Is it raining?
Just seeing like a bag clearly getting thrown over top of the
threw it. Carson 1 for 1 on the year. Had the play of the year throwing the trash bag over the camera.
Yeah, and Carson's one game of filming for us this year, and it rained, and he was up top.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think it has rained any other day or any other game. We've been pretty fortunate so far.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, let's.
I don't know if that's real wood or not, but
I think
we're gonna knock on it anyway.
And there's some chip marks.
This is wood.
Yeah.
It's out of camera view, but good work there for me.
All right, so let's wrap it up with our power rankings and get out of here and head towards Week 10. I'll start things off. It's more or less the exact same, just a little bit different ordering. Ironton, Jackson, Fairland, the top 3. Wheelersburg in the 4, West in the 5. Those with a lot of potential to move this week. Logan Elm still in the 6, which they have some room to move as well if they were to pick up a win over Hamilton Township. Bumped Unioda up to the 7, moved Gallia to 8. I really didn't want to move Gallia because I think they almost showed it was an impressive loss.
Yeah.
Right? And I think they showed a lot in the manner that they lost. But just the way that Unioda handled Paint Valley, 45 to 7 in a game that a lot of people would have sworn was going to be a lot closer.
I think it was projected to be a close game on Fantastic 50, and it was not. Pretty much from the time the fumbled punt happened, it was over. It was a projected 1-point win for Unioda, and they won and they won by 37 or 38.
Yeah. Wow, I wouldn't have put the line that close.
No, I wouldn't have either. But
anyway,
I mean that's all computer stuff,
right?
So.
And then the 9 and 10, Vinton County still in the 9, and then Eastern in the 10. Don't see either of those moving. I mean, definitely not down.
Yeah,
as I think Eastern is against Green, who I don't think has been as good as they were last year. And then we've already talked about how Vinton County is at home against Wellston. So
I think next week will be our last one of these because
probably our final.
Yeah. We'll still do some shows into the playoffs also, so it won't be our last show next week, but that might be our last 2-episode week. But we're gonna still give these kids as much coverage as we can, but we're going to go power rankings for me because I forgot to do that. My number 1, Ironton. I guess it got slightly closer this week because it was their first close game since the Cable Midland game, but, they just keep taking care of business. For me, number 2 is Jackson. I actually moved Wheelersburg up to the 3, moved Logan Elm down to the 4. That could change with a win over Hamilton. But I felt with their game against Tay is a little close, and Wheelersburg just the last 2 weeks just really putting it on teams that are pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
Moved Fairland to the 5. Gallia actually moved up to the 6 after that game. I moved West down to the 7, but that one wouldn't surprise me if they jump up much higher if they can beat Wheelersburg. I kept Unia at 8, which is how impressed I am with those top 7 teams, because like you said, you need to just really put it on a good Paint Valley team. I got Vinton County at the 9, which is really where we were last week, and then actually moved Eastern up to the 10, based on the news that they have 21 players, and they're 9-0 with 21 players.
And they probably had less in a lot of those games as well.
Yeah, so where I had moved them out earlier in the year for their loss against, or not loss, obviously, since they haven't lost, but with their 1-point win over Southern, who's not very good. But in that game, they had a couple players out, and I'm like, oh, it couldn't be that big a deal. They got 21 players. You have anybody out that normally plays, that's going to be, that's going to make games a little bit closer. So I got Eastern at number 10 for me. So.
All right. Well, time for our favorite segment.
Yeah,
the episode. Now, I actually found one mid-episode that I'm really hoping was not the one you found, because this one is awesome.
Okay, I want you to go first then.
Okay. So let me just pull it up. So the Dalton Bulldogs.
I didn't have it.
There we go. So the Dalton Bulldogs at home, 49-point favorites over the Chippewa Chips.
I would say Chippewa.
Chippewa Chips of Doylestown, Ohio. 49-point favorites. Chippewa has one win on the season. It was a forfeit win over Richmond Heights. They have 320 points against, 68-4. It's been a rough season for the Chippies, but yeah, I would not watch Chippewa at Dalton if you have the ability to stay away this week. 49-point spread.
Do you want to get mad?
Sure.
They pronounce it Dayton. Or Dalton. Dalton.
No way.
We had a guy on our SOSA, Southern Ohio Sports Authority, adult league softball team from Dalton, who actually married a Uniota girl.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Dalton. Okay, well, let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
Do not watch the Chippewa Chips at Dalton.
Yeah.
So not projected to be a whole lot of fun.
Yeah. So mine, Coshocton Redskins are going on the road. The 2-7 Coshocton Redskins.
It's a little more local.
Yeah.
Sort of. At least
they cannot get in the playoffs with a win here, though. They are 2-7, but they have a win over 4-5 Meadowbrook. They have a win over 3-6 Crooksville, the Ceramics. They lost to the West Muskingum Tornadoes 57-56 last week. Who are 8-1. So this game is not going to be close. Coshocton will go on the road to Warsaw to take on the Riverview Bears.
Please be over 50.
Riverview Bears. It's actually only a 32-point spread. It won't be 32. Riverview, I'm just going to go over their scores.
Okay.
52-0. 57-6. 40-6. 46-6. They have not scored since. 63-0. 62-0. 59-0. 63-0. 56-0. There's a 0% chance this game's not 50-something to nothing. Like, there's no way. Like, they've scored 3 touchdowns on the year or 6 field goals. I don't know. Maybe they have a really good kicker, but I'm doubting that they do. So,
well, yeah, because if they're scoring 6, then they're not making PAT, or they're going for 2. One of the.
You want to hear the worst part about this?
Sort of.
On Fantastic 50, they're not projected as the worst team in Region 15. The Buckeye local Panthers are.
Oh, for what it's worth, Chippewa wasn't either. They were second.
Yeah, Buckeye local has played a worse schedule, which is why.
Oh, they're in there with like Millersport, who is projected to lose to Bishop Rosecrans by 38.
Smoked Rosecrans in the district final my senior year in soccer. Our first ever district championship. In the mud, literally.
Rainy day?
No, it just rained on every Friday of football season that year. And we played on a football field, and it was awful. It's why they switched 2 years later, they switched to where all district, or 3 years later, they switched all district games had to be on turf in soccer because of that. So, yeah.
I think
So don't watch that game.
or any of the games.
Yeah.
Any of the games we talked. It's my favorite segment. I love
Yes.
it. Just see how wide of a spread. I wonder if there are any that are more than 50. 49's as large.
49
as
is as big as I've seen. They have Uniota Southeastern is 48.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think they tend to not. But I did hear about someone who made a spread on a certain game featuring some Vikings that might be in Vinton County, maybe. And they put the spread at 54 against River Valley. They won by 57.
No, I was gonna. Yeah.
And that was just now Fantastic 50 had it at only 49. So, I don't think they go over 49. But yeah, so don't watch those games we mentioned.
Yeah. If you have a choice.
Yeah, there's some good games we talked about, so go watch those.
Yeah, go watch those. Check out the live. Just stay home, watch our live stream. It'll be much more entertaining.
Yeah, especially if it rains. Yeah.
We'll suffer with the rain, so you can hang out inside. And
Yeah, because there's a couple other media outlets that are going to be there, so we might be on top, which could be.
Hopefully
it just won't be cold.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully we can use our tent that we have that has been used
once
or twice. Yeah.
Yeah. So, appreciate the sponsors. Appreciate McDonald's.
Yeah, McDonald's making every episode of Overtime possible. The proud official sponsor of Overtime. John, if you have anything extra, I mean, I'm not sure if we have anything more to talk about. Head into the final week of the regular season.
We got some more stuff coming next week. Celebrate Halloween next week with us.
Yeah. I don't know why, but I
don't know why we would celebrate Halloween next week because it's not actually Halloween, but it would be 2 weeks. Would be better for us. Actually, no, because the episode will drop before that. So yeah, next week's our Halloween episode.
What day of the week is Halloween?
Tuesday.
Next Tuesday?
No, 2 Tuesdays.
Oh, so yeah, our first episode next week, or our first episode.
Yeah, we got to go.
Wait, is it next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday would only be the 23rd.
So it's 2 Tuesdays.
Or 24th.
2 weeks from tomorrow.
Yeah, so we got to go to Spirit Halloween.
Yeah, so make sure you check. I don't even know. Well, we'll probably only be doing one episode a week at that point. So we'll just drop it on Tuesday just because.
Yeah, just to make it extra spooky.
Just so we can dress up.
Yes.
Yeah. Should be a fun time.
Yep. So, we're idiots. So have fun with that. Good luck to all teams this week, especially ones starting tournament play as of about an hour ago when we're filming this. So, which would have been 3 days ago when this drops. So good luck to those teams. Hopefully you played well. Hopefully. Even if you didn't win.
Hopefully.
Because it's never fun to not play well in your last game.
Right. All right.
I don't know anything about that.
All right. Well, I think that will do it for today's episode of SOSA Overtime, presented by McDonald's.